Very shocking news. BTS Jin share early struggles basic food and fruit before BTS debut. Fans are shocked. Although BTS is currently recognized as one of the most dominant forces in the global music industry, their journey to the summit was paved with hardships that are often overshadowed by their present-day glitz and glamour. In a candid reflection on those formative years, the group's eldest member, Jin, recently opened up about the stark realities they faced before stardom. During an appearance on the program News 9, the host sought to understand the grit behind the glory, asking the group to describe the difficult times in early days. It was here that Jin peeled back the curtain on the unglamorous lifestyle they endured as trainees and rookies. Jin shared vivid, almost visceral details about their living conditions, touching on a situation that, while humorous in retrospect, highlighted the lack of resources they had at the time. He recalled a specific battle with unwelcome dorm guests, fruit flies. The living quarters were so cramped and the maintenance so difficult that a single banana going bad sparked an infestation. Jin described the absurdity of the solution they were forced to use, noting that they had to use a vacuum cleaner to catch the swarms of insects because there were simply too many to handle by hand. Staying on the topic of basic survival, Jin remembered the dietary restrictions that defined their early 20s. It was not a choice of health, but often a necessity of budget and strict management control. He expressed that there were long periods where the members could not afford to eat more than one dish, or were restricted to a monotonous diet. Sometimes we had to eat only chicken breasts, he admitted. This stark limitation stands in sharp contrast to their current reality. Expressing a deep sense of gratitude for the results of their hard work, Jin noted the simple luxury of food freedom. He remarked that today, if he wants to eat 2 pieces of beef steak, he can do so without hesitation, a small privilege that symbolizes their monumental rise from struggling dreamers to record-breaking icons who, despite their real estate portfolios and wealth, often forget they are rich, remaining grounded in the memories of those vacuum cleaner days. To truly understand the weight of a single banana or the luxury of a second steak, one must look past the headlines and into the soul of the man who lived it. The story of Kim Suk-jin is not the typical narrative of a born prodigy. It is a documentary of an ordinary young man thrust into an extraordinary, and often crushing, fire. Unlike his bandmates, many of whom were underground rappers or street dancers breathing hip-hop from childhood, Jin's path was never supposed to lead to a stage. He was a student of acting, a young man from a stable family in Gwacheon who dreamed of scripts and silver screens, not choreography and stadiums. His entry into the world of K-pop is the stuff of urban legend, scouted on the street while disembarking from a bus, purely because his visual presence was undeniable. But in an industry that demands perfection, being scouted for looks became his first and most persistent burden. When he entered the dorms, that cramped space he described on News 9, he walked into a world he did not speak. He was surrounded by members who could write lyrics in their sleep and dance with innate rhythm. Jin started from zero. He had to learn to use his voice, not for speaking lines, but for hitting high notes. He had to retrain his body, which was not naturally inclined to the sharp, synchronized movements of K-pop, to keep up with some of the best dancers in the country. The fruit fly incident he mentioned with a smile actually points to a darker, quieter reality of his early 20s. As the eldest member, or Math Young, Korean culture placed a heavy invisible weight on his shoulders. He was expected to be the pillar, the provider, and the protector. Yet, in those early days, he was just as broke and powerless as the teenagers he was living with. Various fan accounts and industry stories suggest that during the bleakest financial times of the group, Jin would occasionally use his own allowance from his parents to buy ingredients to cook for the members, trying to put real food on the table when the company budget allowed only for the bare minimum. The chicken breast diet was not just about nutrition. It was about control and the suffocating pressure of image. For a young man in his early 20s, the constant hunger was a physical reminder of their precarious position. They were the underdogs, the dirt spoon idols from a small, near-bankrupt agency. They were ridiculed by the industry, cut from broadcasts, and told they would never make it. In this environment, Jin's internal struggle was perhaps the loneliest. He battled a profound sense of imposter syndrome. While the others were praised for their musicality, Jin often faced criticism for his dancing and vocals in the rookie years. He worked in the shadows, practicing for hours after the others had gone to sleep, desperate to bridge the gap between his starting point and his members' talent. He once confessed in a documentary that he felt he was holding the team back, a heartbreaking admission from the man who was supposed to be their anchor. To cope with this fear and the harsh environment, Jin made a sacrifice that defined his public persona. He chose to become the mood maker. He weaponized his dad jokes, his exaggerated laughter, and his worldwide handsome confidence. He realized that if he made himself the punchline, he could deflect the tension from his younger brothers. He absorbed the awkwardness of interviews and the stress of backstage delays by being loud and funny, hiding his own anxieties behind a windshield wiper laugh. This was a lonely role. To be the one who always smiles requires a steel core that few possess. There were nights in that bug-infested dorm where the uncertainty of the future must have been paralyzing. Would the sacrifice of his acting dream be worth it? Would they ever escape the cycle of debt and doubt? However, the chicken breast days eventually gave way to the era of steak. But the rise of Jin was not just financial. It was artistic. Through relentless effort, he transformed his voice into the silver voice of BTS, a stable, emotional, and piercing instrument that became the emotional backbone of their ballads. With solo tracks like Awake and Epiphany, he publicly confronted his own demons, singing about his insecurities and the revolutionary realization that, "I'm the one I should love." He proved that he was more than just a visual. He was an artist who had carved his place in the group through sheer will. The boy who caught fruit flies with a vacuum cleaner became the man who addressed the United Nations. But even as he ascended to the highest echelons of global fame, earning the respect of critics and the adoration of millions, he never let go of the memory of the struggle. The transition to his military service was the ultimate act of dignity. He was the first to go, stepping away from the height of his career to fulfill his duty as a citizen, trading the designer suits for a uniform, once again starting from zero in a new environment. He did so without complaint, earning accolades for his performance in the fierce Korean winter, proving that the resilience forged in that cramped dorm had never left him. Now, when Jin says he can eat 2 steaks if he wants, it is not a boast of wealth. It is a sigh of relief. It is the quiet satisfaction of a man who remembers what it feels like to be hungry, not just for food, but for validation. He stands today not just as a global superstar, but as a symbol of endurance. He teaches his audience that it is okay to start late. It is okay to struggle. It is okay to feel like you don't belong, as long as you keep working until you do. His journey from the cramped room with the rotting banana to the global stage is a testament to the power of patience. As we watch him now, likely cracking a joke or sharing a meal with his fans on a live stream, we see a man who is at peace. The fear of the early days has been replaced by a quiet confidence. He is Kim Suk-jin, the boy who gave up his youth to help build a legend, and who finally, after all the sacrifice, has learned to enjoy the simple, beautiful reward of a good meal. The fruit flies are gone, but the humility remains, grounding him in a reality that is as authentic as his laughter.